Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Ardis, host of the Dr. Ardis Show. This is a very special edition of the show. Thank you to all of you for your love and support worldwide. It's been an ever humbling, very rewarding effort to try to help you at home make sense of the madness that could be emotional upset, spiritual upset, financial upset, physical upset, and suffering. So you all know that my goal is to help you make sense of the world you're experiencing. And for many, it is suffering emotional and physical and spiritual anomalies or issues that often have very easy modalities and techniques to resolve them and identify what's the underlying cause. So one of those things I'm very thrilled and honored to present here to you is the author of a book I think I've quoted all the time for the last 5 years when I've been asked about the heaviness of COVID-19, handling the medical profession and their angst with some of the things I revealed, some of the truths they had to come to reconcile their own differences with over time as we presented research on remdesivir, the hospital protocols, the danger behind them. Many medical doctors had to be forced to look at that information as it appeared I was going to shove it down everybody's throat in the media around the world to make sure you got it. And it was really awesome to watch for those 4 years of COVID, so many medical doctors be awakened to, hey, this guy is unafraid. He is not bashful. He is going to make sure you get it. And at the same time, many people around the world that interview me wanted to know, how can we be handling lawsuits against hospitals around the world? How can you be testifying in Capitol buildings? And how can you do it with a smile and laughter every day? You just seem to always be jovial, like with a smirk on your face. And the truth is, there's a technique and things I've done and learned over many years to help me deal with the onslaught of emotional stress being a big one. I've actually learned that one of the single most powerful conditions of the human mind and heart that literally stops us from doing most things we were designed as little creators to do, there is a man-made created mental fear and a reality of something we create called fear that literally paralyzes us and stops us from accomplishing all things we were designed to accomplish in our own lives. So one of the tools I've used and introduced around the world, I was never afraid to present this information. I was never afraid to stand up to anybody with a license, a degree, a robe, a white coat. I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I knew I could get rid of all the fear, the anxiety, the panic, the shame, the guilt, the judgment, all that stuff that could have been something that held me back. But I've learned something from a guy who wrote a book and then decided to do conferences and teach doctors and lay people how to assess unknown, unrecognized, buried emotions in your psyche that are physically holding you back in all ways of life. And this is Dr. Bradley Nelson, Dr. Brad Nelson. You'll see his name on the screen here in just a second. But I've mentioned the emotion code, which is something I've used since 2009 or 10 when I first met Dr. Brad Nelson in San Francisco and had him teach me how to do what's called the emotion code. And it is a book. He's also got several other books, one called The Body Code and another called The Heart Code. That is a newer book, which references something that he introduces and educates on in his first book, The Emotion Code, which I did read in full in like 2 days in 2009. And then was off 2 weeks later to San Francisco to go learn as much as I could from the man who wrote it, the guy who'd been using it. And it's been 16 years later, and he's now coming on the Dr. Ardis Show. And we are going to be introducing all of you to him. And then I want to have an open dialogue with him, he's the guy that figured this all out, that God, I believe, instilled in him an awareness or knowledge to this ability. And I'm excited to introduce him to all of you. Dr. Bradley Nelson, welcome to the Dr. Ardis Show, and say hi to the audiences.
Well, hi, everybody. And Dr. Brian, it's great to see you again after all these years. And you're one of the top people on my list of most admired people. Thank you for all of your hard work and relentless efforts in all the crazy insanity that's been going on over these last years. So
talking about the insanity, Brad Nelson, you would know, Doc, the amazing amount of turmoil internally in the minds and hearts of people around the world. I mean, we have all of this stuff going on in our heads that we have to sift through and then live life through and live our relationships through, try to find love with, try to reconcile and reattach hurt, injured feelings, experiences with loved ones. And I want you to introduce yourself to the audiences. What's your background? Okay, so let's just start out this way. I'd like you to tell me and the audience, when you were growing up, did you think as you were growing up as a child that one day I want to be interviewed on health podcasts everywhere, educating people around the world how to release their emotional traumas? Is that what you thought as a kid you were going to do? But how did you go from being a kid, wherever you grew up, whatever your ambitions were, you thought was going to be the future of your life? How did you come to being someone who's produced material, received downloads, I'll just say it, or inspirations or knowledge from clinical experience that now allowed you to package it and then go benefit people that you either may not recall? I know you don't remember meeting me at a seminar. There was several hundred people in the room, but how did you go from being a child with whatever your dreams and ambitions were to where you are now, a father just like me of 8 kids, which is amazing. We both have that in common. We actually have a lot more in common than that, but I would like you to dive into what it is that has brought you to the point where you are a leader and helping people you would never follow up with, ever meet in the future, possibly. But later on, realizing decades later that what you felt inspired to do and finally put in writing, which is not easy for anybody who's ever written a first ever book. It isn't easy to want to do that. And so I'd like you to just talk the audiences through, and myself. I'd like to learn from you how you got to this point.
Sure. Well, my journey actually did begin when I was a child. When I was 7 years old, I was really sick with the measles, and I'd overheard my parents talking, and I knew the plan. The plan was I was going into the hospital the next day into something called an oxygen tent because I was pretty sick. They'd made a bed for me on the couch in the living room so I could be near their bedroom. And on this particular night, everybody had gone to bed, and I'm lying on the couch just feeling really nauseous and feverish and just sick. And my folks came into the room, and my mother said to my father, "Honey, will you kneel down with me and say a prayer for our boy so we'll be able to get well?" And so they did. They knelt down by the side of the couch. My dad starts offering this prayer. Now, knowing my dad, this was likely the first time in my life I'd heard him pray out loud. He wasn't a preacher or anything like that. He was in real estate and construction, but he was praying for me. They were really worried. And in the middle of this short, heartfelt prayer, change began at the top of my head, and it went whoosh through my body to the soles of my feet, and I was instantly healed. Now, I remember every moment of that event because it's just to go from being really sick one moment to being totally healthy the next instant is just so bizarre that it's really a memory that's burned into every cell of my body. And I held my tongue till my dad was done praying, which didn't take long. And when he was done, I said, "I'm better. I'm better." And they said, "That's fine. Go back to sleep." The next day proved it. So I learned a couple things from that event. I learned that there's a higher power we can draw upon. And I also learned that healing doesn't necessarily have to take place over a long period of time. It can happen instantaneously because it happened to me. So I filed that information away. And then about 7 years later, I ended up with kidney disease, and I would get these terrific pains that would put me on the ground, and it was really scary. My folks took me to the hospital, and they ran these tests, and my parents were told I had kidney disease, and it was very, there was nothing they could do for me, but it was about a 50-50 thing if I was going to survive or not. And so, but they had nothing to offer really. Well, my mom back in those days was a health nut. And this was back in the days when if you took vitamins, you were actually considered to be a little bit off your nut. Right?
I recall.
Yep. Right? Yeah, it's amazing. And anyway, she decided that there was an alternative that maybe might help me. So she took me to see, along with my dad, took me to see some old-time osteopathic doctors who operated in a trailer house in the middle of a wheat field out on the edge of town in Great Falls, Montana, where I was growing up. And they started working on me and realigning my spine and doing some other things. And I could feel in my body that what they were doing was really what I needed. And I started to feel better right away. And the pains became less frequent right away and less severe right away. And I could feel in my body that what they were doing was just what I needed. And within about 3 weeks, I didn't have any more symptoms at all. Folks took me back to the hospital. They ran the tests again. And they said, "It's a spontaneous remission. It's remarkable. Whatever we did must have helped." But they hadn't done anything. And so I decided I wanted to do what these guys were doing. And so I can remember lying on my back on their treatment table, looking up at them and saying, "When I grow up, I want to do what you're doing." And they were very discouraging. They said, no, no, no. They said, if you go to chiropractic school or osteopathic school or naturopathic school, they said, they'll fill your head so full of fixed ideas, you won't even be able to think when you get out. You'll be like a zombie. Yeah. And I
Wow.
believed, I mean, I'm 13 and I believe everything that they have told me. So, but that was my dream until one day, I was in college and I needed one more class to fill out my schedule. And the only class that fit was a class on computer programming. So I took this class. I didn't know, I wasn't interested in computer programming, but I needed the class. And so I took this class and suddenly I realized I was a complete and total nerd and fell completely in love with computers. And this is right, this is in 1980. So I became a programmer and I was there in on, the personal computer revolution. And I had a business called the Computer Tutor. I would go into people's businesses that would, they'd buy a new IBM PC for their business and there was no software in those days. So I would go in and look at their flow and I would write the software that, so they could get some use out of their computer. And I loved it. It was really fun. Had a lot of great experiences. And so I decided this was going to be my future, computers and business. And I was going to Brigham Young University with my wife. I was recently married and we had a little
Where I went to
girl.
school. We have a lot in common. Yep.
Okay. Right on. And it was 1984, winter of 1984. And I was 6 months away from going into the MBA program to get my master's in business, and computers was going to be my, my side thing, my minor, and went home to Montana. And we're sitting around with my folks, and my dad, totally out of the blue, says to me, are you sure that you don't want to go to chiropractic school? It seems like a great career, and you've always wanted to do that. And I said, no, I'm going this other direction. I'm going to get my MBA and go to work for IBM or some huge company. And he said, well, why don't you think about it one more time? So I thought, well, all right. So my wife and I made up this pro and con list of these two futures, and they were both compelling, so that didn't really help. But having learned there's a higher power, we got on our knees that night and prayed and asked God if he had anything to say about this. So on this particular night, I woke up 3 different times, and each time that I would wake up, my mind would be full of these warm, happy thoughts about serving people naturally and helping people to heal naturally and so on. And I would always counter with, well, yeah, that's true, but the new IBM PC is a 4 megahertz processor, it has 512K of RAM or some stupid thing. So that's how that night went. So the next day I still don't know what to do. So got on our knees the next night, prayed and asked for help. And on the second night, I was awakened again 3 different times. But this night, each time that I was awakened, the thoughts were exponentially more powerful than the time before, such that on the second night, the third time that I was awakened, the thoughts of service to mankind and humanity and the whole world were absolutely overwhelming. And right then I heard a voice that spoke to me as clearly as anything I've ever heard. And it said, this is a sacred calling. And I thought, okay, I get it. This is the direction. And so that's what I did. And I really didn't know what that meant. But anyway, I went to chiropractic school and had a great time. And when I got out, got into
What
practice.
chiropractic school did you go to?
I went to Life West.
Good.
Yeah. And back then it was in, where was it? I think it's in Newark now, but it was in San Lorenzo, California, then up in the Bay Area. So anyway, got into practice and felt like I needed help, right? I thought, well, God's gotten me into this, maybe God will help me. So I developed this habit. And I practiced for about 18 years, in one form or another. And before I would work on somebody, I would just ask silently for help from up above, to help this person. And it was a totally private, totally personal habit. Nobody ever knew that I was praying for them, but I was. And so sometimes information would just flood in, like downloads. That doesn't really happen in my experience that often, but it does happen. And I learned from that higher power is really aware of what we're doing all the time. And so when we ask for help, right, ask and receive, and we can get it. So because I'd been a computer programmer, I had some interesting experiences that were gradually pointing me in this direction, helping me to understand that that there's there's a computer within us, essentially. You call it whatever you want, the spirit, the subconscious mind, whatever you want. But that internal computer, everyone has one. And I began to understand and realize that that internal computer really held all the answers for everybody. And so, it was, let me tell you how this happened, really. I had I used to do activator methods, right? Where you use a little activator gun and it has a
Very
little plunger
familiar.
rubber tip on the end, right? And you have a special table that stands up, and the patient stands on the table, puts their nose in the slot. The table goes down flat, the foot plate drops away. Then you can look at their leg length, and you press on different bones. And if you press on a bone that's got a problem, the leg length will change, and it's just natural reflex by the body. So you could get information in a way from the body. And what I did back in those days is if I found a misaligned bone, I would hit it with a little activator gun, and then that would level out, and I would try to get people totally leveled out, right? And it worked great. I had great results for quite a few years. And then one day what happened was I had just finished up with this patient, this guy, and he was totally balanced. And I'm standing there at his feet. He's laying down on the table, face down. And for some reason, I started thinking about his left kidney. And I came back and checked his feet, and his right leg was about 3/4 of an inch off suddenly. And I thought, wait a minute, I just balanced this guy. What's going on? So I thought about his right kidney and his legs balanced. And I thought, wait, what? And I'm not saying anything. I'm just thinking. So I think about his left kidney, whoop, his leg goes short. Think about his right kidney, whoop, balances. And I realized, wow, there's something really wild going on here. He apparently had some kind of an imbalance going on in his left kidney. And so for a couple of minutes, I'm going back and forth, just thinking. And from then on, for the next number of years, when people would come in, I just began asking, for yeses and nos silently. And I learned that I could check all these bones. I wouldn't have to push on anything. I could just ask, hey, is this bone balanced? Yes or no? And I'd get a change, right? So that was really cool. So one day, this patient comes in. She's been in a car wreck, and I think like a month before, and she's got pain on the left side, or left trapezius area, from the left base of the neck down to her shoulder, and it's pretty severe. It's like a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. So I do the usual chiropractic things. No change in her symptoms at all. I'm not getting her better. I sent her next door to the MRI. We were right next to an MRI place. They sent back this MRI, and it was like textbook perfect, right? And I thought, that's really weird. So I started asking some other questions because the bones were all fine. And what I found was she did have something out of alignment, but it was her heart. And I thought, her heart's out of alignment. So I was able to actually make a little correction, just, put my one hand on her sternum and made just a little gentle impulse in the right direction. And suddenly, boop, the pain was gone. And I thought, wow, that's wild. So then I began checking organs and glands and finding that sometimes organs and glands weren't really happy. They were out of balance. And, I believe that God created everything to have joy in its own little existence, right? And the organs and glands in the body are no different. They're either happy or they're not. And so I learned to just talk to the body. And so I always, because I was a, computer programmer, I always had a computer there with me in my office, and I was recording things as I'm talking to the patient's bodies over time, over, years. Sometimes I would find a new thing, or sometimes as an answer to prayer, I'd get a download that was a new thing. And so I'm building this knowledge base, right? And that's really what the body code is. But the interesting thing was how common it was that these patients of mine had emotional baggage, you could call it. And that seemed to be the number one most common denominator for everybody, no matter how young or old they were, no matter what they were suffering from, if it was physical pain, 90% of all the physical pain people had was actually due to some kind of emotional experience that had not resolved. And so as time went on, pretty soon I started teaching this and teaching other parts of what I had discovered. I started teaching I remember our first event was in July of 1988 or 1998. So I've been doing this for quite a while. And of course now, we travel all over the world and teach. The Emotion Code book first came out in 2007. So not long, not too long before you came to that event. And then about a year after the Emotion Code came out, just to give you a time frame, you remember when the iPhone first came out, right?
I do.
When it first became available for sale was in June or July of 2007. That's when the Emotion Code first came out, and about a year later, I woke up one morning, and my mind was full of instruction, and the instruction was, you need to take everything you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn and make it available to everyone everywhere. And so I thought, are you sure about this? Because it seems like
a big order there.
Yeah, it seems like it might require some work. And being kind of lazy, I just thought, no, I don't know.
That is much more comprehensive than just emotions. Yes.
Yeah, right. So it took me a year. I sat on that instruction for about 3 months. And then I finally thought, I need to get going on this. And so it took a year to create the first version of what we call the body code. And eventually that became a book, and now it's an app and so on. And so then about, let's see, maybe like a year and a half or a couple of years ago, we launched our next level of certification, which is the Belief Code. And so all of our work really, the Emotion Code, the Body Code, Belief Code, is really all about one thing, and that is communicating with the subconscious mind, which knows exactly what's going on, which knows exactly what minerals you might be deficient in, or vitamins, right? It knows what emotional baggage you have. It knows what's misaligned, organ, gland, tissue, whatever. It knows if you've got toxins in the body and what kind, and what you can do to help those things. But there are other things too, like pathogens that are in the body. Teaches you how to work with those, but also disconnections between the spirit within us and the physical body. So there's all kinds of information in there. And then the Belief Code is about finding and deleting the negative statements that can form into entire belief systems in the subconscious mind. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we've been doing. And my wife and I had our 44th wedding anniversary last month, and
congratulations.
We've got 8 kids. We've got 7 grandkids now, and probably too old to be doing this, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. Kind of like you.
I love it. Yeah. So one thing I find miraculous is they're similar to you. I mean, you were looking at computers, you were getting what felt like words being spoken to you, that this is a sacred calling. Now get over there and start learning the natural healing principles, these arts that you had been exposed to when you were 13 with the osteopaths or chiropractors you were visiting with. So I find it incredible that as I have listened to hints, words, audible, that have been spoken to me when no one's around, if I just do what it is, I have also learned that there is a much higher power than my own who actually is guiding me in a direction I often didn't want to take. And then as I have done them, I'm like, whoa, my whole view of life and what is possible has all shifted. So life becomes more and more incredible and more bearable as you learn from other people who are being guided to teach people how to resolve their own personal strifes, whatever they are. It's either physical, it's financial, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And oh my goodness, the majority of you have no idea that other people around the world, this is how I use this terminology there, Dr. Brad. I look at people all around the world and I go like this: I don't know why you're waiting for a real estate developer to make America healthy again. And I don't know why you're waiting for an attorney to make America healthy again. There are people on this earth who are God's children. And he said in the New Testament, to each of his children, He gave spiritual gifts. And one of those gifts was the gift of healing, like physical, emotional, spiritual issues. And there are many of us wandering around trying to do something different that we think we want to be doing when in fact we have been given instruction. We have been given downloads, motivation, guidance, events to redirect you, to put you in a place where you were ultimately designed and put on this earth, I believe, to help all of humanity. And it's been really cool myself to watch this unfold. When COVID happened, I'll just tell you, Dr. Nelson, I used to tell people go, are you nervous about testifying and going up against these hospital systems and these state medical boards? And I'm like, no, my whole adult life was being prepared for this moment. I had no idea this is what was happening. I had no idea this is why my sister was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was 21 years old that took me away from wanting to play basketball anymore and go learn about how the human body truly heals or gets sick. Had no idea that was going to take me to med school, away from med school, to chiropractic, acupuncturist, nutrition, with this obsession of wanting to help my younger sister, and then have children along the way who then had to be inserted into the medical model at times with issues we couldn't resolve. And then a chiropractor transformed in a moment my entire life as a parent. And I wanted to know if you could reclaim my child's health in 1 5-second evaluation and adjustment of one bone in his neck when he was 4.5 months old, that was literally caused by forceps of a medical professional on the day of his birth. And they never knew that. I have had many moments in my life where it's like, no, you need to go look at this. You need to go learn more about this. You need to experience this so that you ultimately get to this point. And it has been one after another, including your emotion code work. I remember in 2009, I had sold a practice, literally told audibly in my right ear, move your family to Dallas. And I had literally built my dream home in Tennessee, right outside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Had my own practice for 5 years. It was super successful. I had everything I wanted since I was a kid, which was to have my own home, my own job outside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And the moment that is done, as soon as I renovated this entire home, I get this audible voice, literally demanding, it was very emphatic, get your family to Dallas. And I was like, what? No, this is not what I wanted. Anyway, the next day, Bradley Nelson, as we're all told to just trust God, trust this higher power, I did. Yeah. I called a realtor and I said, this is 2009. Do you remember what was happening in America in the mortgage period of 2008 and 9? Okay. No house is sold in my higher estate neighborhood in 3 years. And there were all these houses on the market. I put my house on the market that morning within 2 hours. An offer for cash from a couple in North Carolina, called my realtor and said, that home is our home. The only stipulation is we have to be in 2 weeks. I like, what?
I love it.
Oh my God. And I just started that day, by the way. I put the house on the market that morning and then drove off with my family, 5 kids at the time, to go on a week-long vacation. And I was like, wait. I'm going to be out of the state. I have to come back and have 1 week to pack up my house and get out. This is what has to happen. Okay, fine. So anyway, I do that. When I moved to Dallas a year later, okay, I moved my family the next week after coming home from vacation. We did move there, but I kept flying back and forth every weekend to see my patients who I wasn't prepared to sell my practice. I was only doctor there. So I hired in a new doctor, trained them for a year, sold it, and moved back. Dr. Nelson, I didn't leave my home in Dallas, Texas for a whole year. I didn't leave the house. I didn't want to be in Texas. I wanted to be back in the Smoky Mountains. I did not want to be in Dallas, Texas. I followed orders. I didn't like the order. So for a year, I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't go start a practice. I couldn't go help people, which I knew this is my life at the moment to do. I was really hung up on something and I didn't know what it was. So everybody watching, Dr. Bradley Nelson will appreciate this, and all of you at home who now have an appreciation for me, I've had to learn some things personally I would have never learned otherwise. So I'm told to be somewhere I don't want to be, which is Dallas, Texas. All of you have had these moments in your life where you feel impressions to be somewhere, do something different, but you don't want to. No. You should follow these recommendations. No matter how hard they are, how sucky they are. I did. I was pissed. For a whole year, I didn't leave the house. And My parents are always coming over, so worried about me being depressed about my life because I'm very ambitious and very jovial and very happy in life and everything's hunky-dory. And all of a sudden now he's mega depressed and doesn't want to leave the house and is doing nothing, like zero, bummed out, don't want to be here. And then I'm told, this is not a joke, everybody listening home, I sold a house that I never owned before in Tennessee and moved to Dallas, and I sold a practice I never owned before. I had more money I've ever had in my whole life at this time. When I get to Dallas, I pay cash for a house, which I still had plenty of money on. And after 1 year, everybody in my family is trying to figure out ways to either buy me something. Let's go buy a boat. Let's go on vacation. Something's got to make Dr. Ardis happy. No, or dad happy or husband happy. No, nothing. Nothing mattered. We would just blow money, spend money. Then it comes to this. You don't know this. Nobody knows this, actually. So at the time, my wife walks up to me and says, Brian, mortgage is due in 2 weeks, and we don't even have enough to cover the mortgage. We've burned through all the savings.
Oh, man.
Cash for the house. I paid over 70% down on the house. I still had this little remaining mortgage. We don't have the money to do that. You need to go open your practice and get to work, man. You got to do something. And I was like, something is wrong with me. Like, something is very wrong with me. And I had no idea what it was, Dr. Nelson. So this is not a joke. I had just one thought, and that thought was, I need to contact a lady who a few years earlier had taught me how to do muscle testing, but only in nutrition. So I was like, well, maybe there's just something wrong with me from selling the practice. I'm depressed. Maybe it's an adrenal dysfunction. I'll just go there. Maybe she can help me figure out what that is. I thought it was very physical. I fly to Redmond, Washington, just south of Seattle, to visit Dr. Jeanette Birnbach. And yeah, I don't mind telling her name. Everybody go see her. She's amazing. She's still there. I go to see her, and she's the one that taught me muscle testing years ago. And I said, Jeanette, I need your help. And she looks at me and she goes, what's wrong with you? Now, all I said was, I need your help. And she goes, what is wrong with you? You're not the same Brian Ardis I knew 5 years ago. And not a joke. I don't know. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just started bawling, crying. I mean, bawling, and I couldn't stop. Because something was very disconjointed. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't tell if it was physical, emotional, or both, or what. So this is what she says to me. She goes, I need to tell you something. I've learned something since training you 5 years ago that you didn't know. I didn't teach you this. And I said, what's that? And she goes, I have learned since meeting you that there's not a pill for every ill. This was her wording. There's not a pill for every ill. And she tells me then that for 3 years, she's been down this journey of learning about buried, trapped emotions that cause people to be paralyzed, confused, sick, disease, you name it. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm out of my mind. I'm really depressed and weird. And I'm like, I don't know. Just, can you figure it out? I trust you. Can you just tell me? And she goes through and does a whole muscle testing analysis on me, and every organ is healthy. Nothing is wrong. Like you're talking about with the leg link checks, doing your activator, asking questions thing. Sure. You just happen to think about the kidneys, and then something changed. Then you thought about the person's other kidney, then something changed, and it looked normal. Mm-hmm. Every time you brought up something else mentally or just a thought, something physically was changing in this human. So for me, she just did the analysis. My legs in this scenario, in your scenario, the legs didn't change. They were the same length no matter what organ she was checking, adrenals, kidneys, brain. Nothing was wrong physically. So then she says, well, at least physically you're all okay and you're all there, but something's wrong. I need to dive into, maybe there's some hidden emotional burden you're unaware of. What comes out of her mouth, I could not believe. She goes, she doesn't say a word, just like you mentioned. You were just thinking thoughts. She couldn't even muscle test me physically or directly because I was so just weird. Like I was just loose. I couldn't lock a muscle. I was out of it. Yeah. Brings in an assistant to help her. Everybody watching me right now, you do not know anything about this. I know it seems confusing. She muscle tested another person who came in, was touching me, did the evaluation, and then out of Jeanette's mouth without me talking said, you have trapped emotions and fears around money that was triggered when you sold your practice, but it stems from something that happened to you when you were 11 years old. And I went like this, what are you talking about? She's like, so what happened to you when you were 11? And that surrounded money. And I said, this is exactly what I said. Me, the sarcastic Dr. Ardis. I said, well, I didn't lose my lemonade stand. Like I didn't lose a company when I was 11, so I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes, no, this isn't time to be funny. I am absolutely 100% convinced something happened to you when you were 11 years old, and it is resurfaced when you sold your practice in Tennessee, and you don't know there's a connection. So what happened to you when you were 11? Now, just so you know, listening, you know at this point, this person's not doing the emotion code because they could have figured it out just following your questions. She was doing a different emotional release technique. Okay, so she is just asking questions, then she needs me to fill in gaps she doesn't know what to ask. And I said, 11. And I went just like this, 11? She goes, yes. And I said, how old would I have been when I was 11? This is how out of it I was. She looked at me and goes, you would have been 11. And I said, sorry, what grade would I have been in when I was 11? And she goes, 5th or 6th grade. So what is it about money that happened to you when you were 11 and in 5th or 6th grade? I could remember and reflect back on grades more than an age. Mm-hmm. And I said, when I was in 6th grade, I overheard my parents arguing in their living room. I was by myself. I was the oldest of 5 kids, and I listened to them argue about my dad losing his business and having to file bankruptcy. Mm. And she just starts doing muscle testing. She goes, that's exactly what happened to you. Okay, so now we have to figure out what it is you decided when you were watching this scenario, what it is that you made it mean something to you that resurfaced just last year when you sold your practice. And what comes out from this evaluation is when I saw my dad in his emotional state having to admit bankruptcy, I had determined that at some point this same upset was going to happen in my own life. I will go bankrupt one day. I told myself this. So when I sold my practice, I no longer had a job. This was my first ever own job. I sold it. And without me even knowing, my mind brought up this fear that I would go bankrupt. And it was literally playing it out. Like, I'm now going to create this scenario because I have said since I was 11, this was going to happen to me. And I didn't remember saying that to myself. So I came home. Now you're familiar with this, I'm sure. She taught me then, and just like you, learning levels. You knew you could touch points and watch leg lengths change with the activator technique. Then you learned the next thing, which was there's levels to this analysis. I can just think thoughts about this guy's kidneys and the same thing's happening. What happens when I ask about misalignments without touching? Oh my God, this works. What happens when I ask about other organs that might be causing neck pain? I'm getting information. Okay, there are levels to your growth and awareness, as lots of people like to call consciousness. You are just becoming more aware of these tools and what they can do. I was taught then in 2009 that I have these trapped emotions from when I'm 11. You're going to have to go do tapping, and we're going to rewire your belief systems. You told yourself you would be bankrupt one day. You're living it out and living proof right now. You're about to do it. We're going to have to replace this belief that you are going to go bankrupt one day with you do not have to file bankruptcy one day just because your dad did. You can have wealth, you can have abundance, and not be threatened by something that happened to your dad. Just because it happened to him, doesn't have to happen to you. Now, I did this work for about 2 weeks. Then I go online on the internet. That was even still younger back then, right? 2008 and 9. And I look up for emotional release books. And that's where I found your book, which I didn't even know was just written in 2007. That would have been only 2 years prior. And I do believe God made sure that Dr. Ardis got a hold of this information to help him. I'm looking for what that girl in Seattle knew about emotional release work. She never told me a book or anything to read. So I just went looking up books on buried emotions because I had never learned this before. But I had been rescued from my trauma. And I want everybody to know, when I came home and did the work, it was 2 weeks later doing this tapping, reaffirmation stuff that I literally sitting on the couch and I'm doing it. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. What am I doing here? Why am I in my house? I've never sat down ever. I'm very anxious body. I'm always wanting to be moving. I literally walked out the door, drove to downtown Frisco, Texas, where I lived, and went and met every business owner that afternoon and told them, in 2 weeks, I'm going to open up a practice right behind you. You just need to know who I am. Tell all your customers, all your clients, I'm right behind you. And this is what I do. And it was gangbusters successful. I mean, out the door, 95 new patients in the first day, 200 in the first week. It was just amazing. And it just continued to grow. 16,000 patients in 9 years. It was amazing. Wow. But it was life transforming from where I was. And then I just wanted to know, well, what else can I learn about emotions? And that's where I came across your book. So I just ordered it and I read it in 2 days because I was like, I don't know a lot about emotions. And I'm like, wait, this technique looks much simpler than what I just experienced up in Seattle. I'm going to find out if this guy does any seminars. There was one in San Francisco. I flew out there and then sat through that seminar for a couple of days. And I have learned so much. And this is the one tool. I don't do affirmations. I don't do tapping. All I do is the emotion code work. And I do it every day, either on me, my wife, my kids, grandkids, somebody, friends. It doesn't matter. It's a part of my life. My kids take advantage of it even when they're not home. We were talking before air, friends of theirs in school, middle school, high school, college. If they're having issues, my kids text me, can you please help release emotions from my friends? They're really struggling with whatever. And it's very cool to have kids that have been raised for the last 16 years being aware this is a useful tool that really transforms their absolute same day experience of living. Like in a moment, it's really incredible. Now, truly, I will just speak. I've learned, even in your book and from your seminars, that when you do the emotional release work, there's a lot of healing that goes in the body. The body is very intertwined with the physical spirit, the soul. It's all intertwined. So there's fascia, there's muscle, there's nerves that all have to unwind from the trauma of these emotions. And so I would tell people, you can expect the ultimate experience, lightness, the heavy cloud, the weight you're carrying on your back from all this emotional stuff to be gone in the next 48 hours. You're going to see a transformation. It's going to be amazing. And every day people would call in and go, I don't know what he did to me yesterday, but tell him, I don't even feel like my feet are touching the ground today. I feel like so much lighter than I felt for years carrying all the emotional baggage they've been carrying. So anyway, I just want to thank you for producing that. That was an incredible experience for me, but I have continued to learn. You've continued to present. You went from the emotion code or being able to analyze information. And then you went, it's great about emotions. Now go write the body code where people can now take the principles you've learned for decades in all aspects of their health, physical, emotional, spiritual, not just the emotional. Let's go after all of it. And you've learned a lot. And so I'm sure every year you're like, do I really need to add to that? Yes, because you're learning every day, just like I'm learning every day. And so the emotion code, then the body code, the belief code. I actually read your summary on that book. I haven't read that yet, but just the key points on your website about our belief system standing in the way of our truly being able to your subconscious is controlling your conscious experience when it comes to belief systems. So it's a very, very big deal, the belief systems. And I haven't read that book, but I look forward to that. And then the heart code builds on this heart wall notion that you learn about in the emotion code, the first book, which I thought was really miraculous. And so this is really just you and I having a conversation for the first time since we met in 2009.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that I really have a great admiration and appreciation for the tool. I literally have your emotion code in my notes section of my book, of my iPhone that came out roughly the same time your book did. I go into my notes, type in the emotion code, it pops up, and then I'm doing that every single day. I'm doing it in airports, doing it in stages, doing it in my house, in my living room, everywhere, restaurants. It doesn't matter. You can do it anywhere. And it's an incredible ability. I think we've all been told and sold ideas that healing only comes from outside of you. No, it doesn't. You can do the work all on your own. And you made it very, very simple. And I believe God has truly guided you in doing this work. So it's why I continue to talk about it. It's why I continue to tell people this is how I've accomplished what I've accomplished, because of the ability to analyze and remove emotional barriers in my own personal life. Because fears, worries of shame, judgment, you name it, whatever, could easily get in the way. And I just want to make sure that's not sitting there, that I can just be transparent, be myself, be genuine and authentic without my mind or my own belief systems ruling my ability to contribute to humanity. So I would like you to talk a little bit about how it is that the emotion code for many people out there, a lot of people struggle with relationships, love, finding love, the belief that they are worth being loved or having a soulmate or a love in their life, or rekindled relationship to their children or parents. Can you talk about the impact of the emotion code work in helping to restore relationships, open the possibility for new relationships, and how the heart wall or the heart code book, which you've written, how that might be of something they might want to consider looking into?
Well, absolutely. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. I just can't even tell you how moving and how humbling it is, really, for me. It's just it's a little bit surreal to have played this role. And really, since I learned that there is a higher power, all I've ever really wanted was to be an instrument in the hands of that higher power. And when you ask for that kind of thing, then, God honors that. And I tell people all the time that, this work is awesome, but it isn't about me. I'm just like the guy I'm just the little workaholic guy that I think God said, what, that guy's, give it to him because, he's a workaholic.
He'll do it.
He's also an emotional wreck. He'll write the emotion code book. So, but anyway, so in the, as you know, in the emotion code book, there's a chapter in there about the heart wall. And as I was working with patients, sometimes I would have this feeling that there was something that I was missing. So there was something going on with different people that I was not able to figure out, and I didn't know what it was. And then it was really shown to us that from up above, that there is this phenomenon that goes on where we build a wall subconsciously around the heart. And I remember being the age that I'm at, I remember I was always interested in medicine and healing. And I remember back in the 60s when they did the first heart transplant, Dr. Richard DeBakey, was a big deal. But something that I didn't find out about till many years later was that after heart transplants began to be routine, something that would happen fairly often is that people would come back to the doctor and they would report strange things, like their taste in music or their taste in food or sports would have completely altered. Or sometimes they'd have memories of being in places in the world that they never in their life had ever visited. And in pretty much every case, when these people would be connected with the family of the heart donor, they'd find out things like, well, yeah, our son loved baseball. He was a baseball player. Now you love baseball too, but you didn't like it before. That's weird. But then his heart's inside of you, so that's odd. Or things like, yeah, our daughter visited Rome every year. It was her favorite city in the world. And now you have memories of being in Rome, but you've never in your life have ever been there. So those are her memories. How weird is that, right? So there are books, of course, written about this. It's called Cellular Memory, as you know. But anyway, what we have found is that the ancients believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love and creativity and romance, and that was really the core of our being. And in the Western world, of course, we've never given any credence to those ancient ideas. Those people were idiots, or if not idiots, they just didn't have the kind of equipment we have today.
They weren't scientific. They weren't scientists. Yeah.
They didn't follow the scientific method. They were a primitive kind of people and so on. Well, guess what? It wasn't just poetic license on the part of those people. Now we're finding out, the heart seems to be everything that they, were saying. In fact, it wasn't until the 70s that they found out that the heart is full of gray matter and white matter and 40,000 dendrites, the little brain in the heart. Now we know that most of the messages between the brain and the heart are traveling from the heart to the brain. And so there's all this going on. Well, my wife was born into a kind of a pretty dysfunctional family. Her dad was kind of a rageaholic. He was a good man, but everybody was always walking on eggshells. Nobody knew who he was going to blow up at next or for what. And so it was scary. And by the time she was 2 years old, her subconscious mind decided that her heart was going to break over all this. And so it began to build a wall. And that wall was made from the energy of her emotional baggage. And the price that she paid for having that wall all those years was she battled with depression and anxiety. She always felt kind of isolated, even with friends that she'd had for decades, girlfriends, women that she had known forever. She never really felt like she belonged. She always felt like she was on the outside looking in. And then this was, like I said, it was kind of shown to us. It was actually a vision that I had, a waking vision. And it's all explained in, it's in all 3 books. I guess I could talk about it, but we began releasing these emotional energies from her heart. They're like layers. And we finally cleared the last one. It was transformative for her. And then I think it was the very next person that I saw that had this heart wall was a nurse that came in to see me in my practice. And she was 38 years old. She was a nurse and she had this, pretty severe neck pain. It was about a 9 out of 0 to 10 scale, been going on for a while. She'd seen a couple of doctors for it, but they hadn't been able to help her. And so as we're talking, she tells me that She has not dated in 8 years. She's single. She's never going to date again. She's basically celibate and is never going to date. She's going to die single. And I said, well, how did you arrive at this? And she said that 8 years before, she was really deep in love with this guy that dumped her and broke her heart. And so I tested her and found she had put up a wall, subconsciously. It's not a conscious thing at all. And there were three emotional energies, three trapped emotions from the breakup from 8 years before in her case. So we cleared those three emotions. When I cleared the last one, the neck pain, boom, went to zero just instantly. And she left the office feeling great. She got what she was, coming to see me for. And that was her neck pain. Well, 3 months later, she comes back in the office and I saw her in my hallway and I immediately remembered her because she was the only celibate, person I'd met besides an occasional Catholic priest. And I said, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? She said, my neck's been fine since I was here. But she said, you cleared that heart wall for me. And that really works. She said, about 2 weeks after I was here, I found out my childhood sweetheart has been living right around the corner from me for almost 8 years. And we're dating and we're in love. And she said, I think he's going to ask me to marry him. Right. And so this was, these are the first couple of experiences that we had. So in the very beginning, I thought that this might be something that just, was restricted to my wife because she'd had some interesting things. She's been my guinea pig over all these years, right? And has had a lot of interesting things.
Yep.
Right? Your wife probably can relate.
Our wives, yeah, you ain't kidding. They're the guinea pigs. Usually.
Yeah, these poor women. We should have a moment of silence for them. But anyway,
we love you. Thank you.
So anyway, we now know that about 93% of people have put up a wall around the heart. And it's one of the reasons why the world is so unfeeling, because people don't feel with this brain. And when you've got a wall around your heart from all the emotional garbage you've experienced in your life, you don't feel very well, because we really truly feel with the heart. And so when you've got a wall around your heart, which most people do, you're left really to feel with this brain. And to this brain, because it doesn't really feel anything, it uses logic. And hey, it's perfectly logical to use war as an extension of politics and to drop bombs and hurt people and get ahead by whatever means necessary, right? But when that wall is taken down and you start to feel, it's not unusual for people to fall in love who never thought they would, for people to have creative ideas that begin to flow spontaneously, because I think the best creative ideas you'll ever have will come not from this brain, but from this brain, the brain in the heart, right? And that's why people intuitively tell their kids or friends when they graduate from school or college, they'll say, you've got to follow your heart. But the problem is when you got a wall around your heart, it becomes much more difficult. And so all of this is explained in the emotion code book and in the body code book, but we have known for a long time that we really eventually needed to write another book that is just about this concept, because it can be so life-changing. And, Brian, when I look at the world, to me, I think that the earth is in labor, in a sense, trying to give birth to this new world that's trying to come. And it's a world that's going to be run on unconditional love. It's going to be brighter and better and happier and everything in every way than any world we have ever known. And it's not going to be owned any longer by all these dark forces that we have to deal with now. It's another world that is coming, and we assist that world to be born by working on ourselves and our loved ones, our family members. Of course, we certify and train people. We've certified over 15,000 people now in 108 countries at this point to do this work and to really be trained in it. But anybody can learn this. The information it's all in the emotion code book, right? About how to get rid of your emotional baggage. The body code book teaches you how to find all these other things. The heart code book comes out the 2nd of December. And if people want to, people can pre-order. We have some really cool special things going on. They can go to my personal site at drbradleynelson.com, Dr. Bradley with an Ley, Nelson.com, and they can pre-order books, and then you can do all your Christmas shopping. The book comes out the 2nd of December. You can do all your Christmas shopping right now and get some special things too.
Yeah, we're getting. I think it's will help make sense to some people. When I read the Emotion Code book the first time back in 2009, and reading about the heart walls, to help everybody get a context around this, you do a really good job of explaining, and I'll just do my best to do it here. For those of you who have ever had your heart hurt, I don't care how young or old you are, if you've ever had your heart broken or hurt, or have ever felt worthless or unlovable by a parent, grandparent, whatever, in order to protect from ever feeling that way again, we will often construct something to protect the heart from being exposed to future emotional hurt. So the subconscious mind will just create like this protection around the heart. And you were talking about war. What do you do when you go to war? You build up a wall, or you dig a trench, and you put up posts to try to protect what's inside from people outside trying to come in. This is basically what the heart does. And in the Emotion Code book, it's pretty cool. I think for those of you who've never read it, that you find that individuals, based on their own life experience and their own definitions of materials that are physical in this world, their subconscious mind surprisingly will construct a wall around the heart out of materials you are physically familiar with, but it's just a concept that you've literally built, either a wooden wall around your heart or a steel wall around your heart. And I haven't read your book since 2009, but I have to tell a story. You also found that there was a guy who had a plastic wall around his heart. That was his heart wall. And you couldn't really figure out where you got this idea for a plastic wall. It doesn't seem very safe. Doesn't seem very protective. Plastic versus wood and metal, other stuff you'd found as heart walls. And only to discover that this guy had a fascination with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid, and saw these little turtles, these little cartoon characters, little toys, as protective creatures. And he had a green plastic wall around his heart that came from the concept in his mind when he was a kid that little green turtles were protectors in cartoons. Yeah. So he had built in his mind a green plastic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle wall around his heart to protect him from his heart being broken in the future, or him being told he was worthless or not lovable or unloved. He never wanted to feel that again. And all of us will put walls around us. You've heard the term. You just put walls up when you're tired of somebody and you don't want to talk to them anymore. You don't want to be around. You just put up walls. You're not going to date anymore, engage anymore, talk to you anymore. I'm just going to put up walls. And people construct walls emotionally around their heart that keeps them from experiencing the ultimate connection to the earth, humans in your life, a loved one, a lover in the future. And that is your heart. So your heart needs to be able to experience love. And many of us, for unfortunate reasons, we find that in mortality, we will construct walls and put up walls that keep us from being able to truly share our heart with someone else and experience what it's like to have them share it with you. Was that a good analogy?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for kind of filling in some blanks there. It's really been the most amazing thing to see how powerful this can be. I mean, I've seen people suicidally depressed who had to decide every day if they were going to live another day or take their life. I've seen those people completely flip just by removing the heart wall. Kids that are autistic always seem to have a heart wall. And often those kids will not make eye contact. The first thing they typically do when we clear the heart wall from them is make eye contact. It's so interesting. And the stories just keep coming. I mean, we've got over 10,000 stories from people all over the world. But and the hardest thing about writing the Heart Code book was figuring out what stories we wanted to put in there. But there are chapters about animals and about money and love and all kinds of things. But you know, one of the things that I found when I was in practice during the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw were coming from Western medicine to me as a last resort. People that have been told they were never going to get better. What they had was incurable. And what I found with these people was that they all seemed to have a heart wall. And sometimes what I would do, well, I had an initial exam that I would always do on everybody. And what I would do is I would check all the balance of all the organs and all the glands and the meridians and the chakras. And it wasn't uncommon to find all the organs and glands imbalanced and lots of meridians and chakras. And sometimes with these people, what I would just do is clear their heart wall. Usually take me, 2 or 3 sessions back then. And then I would completely repeat that initial exam. And inevitably, I would find that 80% of all those organs and glands and chakras and meridians were now balanced and now happy. And it taught me about how critically important the heart is. And it really, truly is everything the ancients believed it to be. And, we get these stories all the time. One of my favorites just recently, just like maybe 10 days ago, came from one of our practitioners who worked on this elderly woman in her 80s in a nursing home who was really a spinster. She'd never been in love, never been in a relationship really her whole entire life, got her heart wall cleared. And within a week, she's in love for the first time in her life with this other guy who's a resident of this nursing home. And he's like 3 or 4 doors down. There's no limit, right?
Not in assisted living homes or nursing homes. Nope. That's awesome. Well, I have to tell you, there's been many people I've met and I've been able to clear their heart walls, do emotional release work. There's what's also called psychic traumas you talk about in the book. And there have been many people who've experienced multiple emotions at one time, like fear, anxiety, panic, worry, fear, you name it. And it'll all just be convoluted, like one big traumatic moment. One great example would be all of you that sat at home and watched the Twin Towers come down in 2001. You probably had fear, anxiety, shock, terror, all in 1 second watching the TV screen. And there's a term called psychic traumas that Dr. Nelson has analyzed. And I have found that people who often have heart walls also have psychic traumas around heartache, love, sexual abuse, something in their past. And I will find individuals who have been in and out of sex rehab for years. When I would do the heart wall and psychiatric traumas, when I would do that, oh my goodness, these people within 2 weeks would come and bring me an invitation to their future wedding. And I'm like, wow, that was fast. You found love after just clearing that stuff. It's pretty fantastic to watch lives transform without a drug, without a prescription. It's amazing. Right? You do not, SSRIs are not the only answer to depression. Barbiturates are not the only answers to anxiety and PTSD. Nope. No. Actually, often I will just share it here. For those of you who want to get an introduction to the power of emotions, you all have heard of the term psychosomatic. Psycho means brain, mental, mind, and then somatic is organs, physical body, mind over matter, mind over your organs. And you've all heard the term, that makes me sick to my stomach. You can be watching a horror film, something horrific happens, and you will get vomity, nauseous, dizzy, whatever. It literally makes you sick physically, like you physically feel sick. Yeah, the term is, that makes me sick to my stomach. And there's nothing really making you sick. It's just an emotional experience. And you're creating this physical symptom from an emotional experience. So you absolutely know that emotions have an impact on you. In order to learn more about how it is emotions can impact every organ of your body to create every symptom and disease on earth, you should read the book by Carol Trueman, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. At the same time, you should get the emotion code. I would expect maybe you will have some different recommendation now. Do you still recommend people start with the emotion code, your first book you ever wrote, or do you recommend a different book since that should be first?
Well,
from you.
Yeah, when the Heart Code book comes out, it's coming out the 2nd of December. It's going to include everything about the emotion code, how to release the trapped emotions, and so on.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, the emotion code's a great place to start, or the Heart Code. We teach about trapped emotions in the body code as well. So yeah, either way, whatever you feel drawn to, fine.
For those who are going to read the book and then want to become certified practitioners, where do they learn more about that?
Yeah, they can go to our website at discoverhealing.com. And we have 3 levels of certification right now. Emotion code is level 1, body code level 2, belief code is level 3. And the level 2, the prerequisite is level 1. And so they kind of go 1, 2, 3. And we have people, like I said, all over the world who are, making a good living and actually helping people. It's a beautiful thing. So if you're sick of your day job, this is an option for you. And also, what's interesting is that, AI, I think, is going to take a lot of jobs, but I don't think AI is ever going to be able to take the place of a practitioner, because they're listening to their intuition, to the angels around them. They're asking for guidance and so on, which we teach them how to do. And AI is never going to be able to take that away. So if you're worried about your job, well, there's another option.
Amen to that. All right. What's your hope for the future? What do you think is next? Have you already had intuitions of what you need to write up next, work on next, go research next, anything?
Well, right now we're filming a documentary about the heart code, and we're working on doing the best we can to get that book onto the New York Times bestseller list, because we think that's going to open a lot of hearts. We have a goal right now to open 1 million hearts. And we think that if we can get to that, that's going to be a tipping point. There's this tug of war going on between the forces of light and the forces of darkness in this world, as you well know. And like I said before, the earth is in labor trying to bring forth this new world. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So we're just trying to play our part here. And how we get to that new world is by healing individually. And if you think of things in terms of vibration, as the vibration of individual people rise, because they're getting rid of all that baggage that's weighing them down energetically, the whole, the vibration of the earth rises. And so it's very, very exciting. I know that there's going to be some difficult stuff we have to get through to get there, but on the other side, I think the future is just so incredibly bright. I think we can't really quite even begin to imagine it, but that's what I believe is coming. So
that's awesome. Good. Well, the only impressions I'm getting in my mind right now that I want to relay, I never really think about it because I got over it a long time ago. All right. So many patients would come into my practice knowing that I would do muscle testing to analyze for physical issues. And then they also had heard their friends and loved ones tell them, who were referring them to my practice for years. He also does something called the emotion code. He does emotional release work, and you should have him do that for you. Okay, they would say that. And I so often would have this person come into my practice, and on the first day go like this: I want you to do all the physical muscle testing and figure out what's wrong with me, but please don't do the emotional stuff. I think that's witchcraft, sorcery, and based on my Christian views, I'm not joking. They go, based on my religion, my Christian views, I believe that's witchcraft, and I don't want any part of it. Then I'd look at them and go like this: that's great. That's okay. I'll meet you where you are, but I just want you to know, there's nothing witchcraft or sorcery about this. There's nothing, zero, nada. And so we will go as far as we can with the physical. When you start seeing there's improvements there and you realize you can build trust and faith in me, then you're probably going to ask. Not a joke. Every single person who ever said it, I probably had like 20 people that said that of the thousands. They'd go, don't do it. I'm worried about witchcraft, sorcery. None of that doesn't fit my context of my belief system, which I'm glad to see the belief code, by the way. Y'all might want to start with the belief code if this is coming up for you. You've been programmed to trust nothing internal, only external. You can only get it from your preacher, from a book, from someone else outside of you. You cannot heal yourself. Don't let anybody go inside your mind to help you, or you yourself don't do it either. Well, if you believe it's witchcraft or sorcery, you should first read the book yourself and then do it to yourself. No one out there is doing anything demonic or witchcraft. I just need to say this. Everyone who said that would come in later when their faith and muscle testing would go up, when their physical ailments were being handled, which in your case, in the body code, it would be things like this. Did you know that your heart arrhythmia, from our analysis, you have parasites called heartworms in your heart, just like your dog and cat does at home? And we're just going to clear that out. And when we do over the next 3 months, you're going to see your heart works better and all your physical stuff's going to disappear. This is similar to body code work. There's physical things that can get into the body, external poisons introduced into the body to make you sick. And you can analyze for those questions too, just like you learned from him using the emotion code, but using what's called the body code is the other book. So as I would do that kind of work, even though it wasn't exactly the body code, they would see the improvements. Then they'd come in months later and go like this: okay, I trust you, do the emotion code stuff. And overnight, they all would see massive transformative things in their own personal life and how they see the world, experience the world, love, relationships, children, everything improved. It was miraculous to watch. And all of us are at different levels of awareness, beliefs, and just start with first understanding how the mind and your emotions, your heart impact your body physically, how the emotional experiences we're creating in our hearts and minds physically leads to illness and disease. And to capture that, read the emotion code. I also recommend having Carol Truman's Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. Carol Truman didn't have the emotion code, or else she would have never put never die, because she would have wrote feelings buried alive can be released. That's what it would have been changed to. But I want you all to know, to learn the impact of emotions. You'll get that from that book, a great summary and an understanding. And then you can apply the technology that was been hinted to Dr. Bradley Nelson, that this is a sacred calling to help all of my children around the world remove the emotional burdens that are holding them back from fully experiencing the life you were gifted to have this one time on this planet. So in order to make that better, he's put people on the earth like Bradley Nelson to make these things known to you and put them in printable, readable fashion. So where can they find your books? You mentioned discoverhealth.com.
Discoverhealing.com.
Discovering, what is it?
It's discoverhealing.com is our main website. So people can go there and get information about certification and events that are going on and so on.
Very good.
If they're interested in the Hardcode book and pre-ordering that, they get some very special things that go along with that. And that's at drbradleynelson.com. And and of course, the books are available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and wherever books are sold.
I love it. That's awesome. All right, Dr. Nelson, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to hopefully crossing paths with you physically somewhere, and we can enjoy celebrating with the other people around us. What incredible gifts we're experiencing as a result of listening to the higher power tell us where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be learning and what we need to be telling people and instructing people, inspiring them that life can be greater than it is.
It always works out if you listen.
It absolutely does. That's the lesson.
Well, this has really been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. Where can people find you next? Where are you going to be physically next week, this weekend, this Thursday, Friday, Wednesday?
I'll be speaking at the Find Your Flow Summit in Basel, Switzerland. I think on the 1st and 2nd of November, and then we have a live belief code seminar for those that are at that level. That's going to be in November, I think. Yeah, later in November.
Very good. All right, everybody, remember, Healing for the Ages 3.0 is coming up in Dallas, Texas. Get your rear in there. We'll have Dr. Bradley Nelson there next year. I have to work on his calendar. He's busy. We'll make sure he comes out to Healing for the Ages and presents what he has taught everybody around the world, and everyone that's in my circle of influence needs to know about that. And I've continued to talk about it, but it's great to introduce you now finally to those who have found trust and respect for what we're doing. So thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. Have a great rest of your day. Dr. Ardis Show fans and everybody at home, y'all have a great week. I will see you next week on the Dr. Ardis Show, and God bless you in your travels, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ardis. See ya.
You're very welcome. God bless.
Disclaimer. Please note, the following presentation is solely for informational purposes and should not be seen as a replacement for advice provided by your physician. It is important not to rely on the information from this presentation for diagnosis, treatment, medication prescription, or any other form of medical care. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professionals before taking any medication, nutritional supplement, herbal remedy, homeopathic treatment, or pursuing any health-related procedure. If you have a medical condition or believe you might have one, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it based on this presentation's information as the products or services purchased from it do not establish a doctor-patient relationship between you and any affiliated physicians. Statements about dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.